Well, hello and welcome everybody to the day three of our West Coast Digital Summit. We are really excited to bring to you a very exciting panel today, yet again, on a very exciting part which we discuss on Investors Arc. We are also very excited to have the CEO of Meti Startup Hub, Jeet Vijay. He's a known face in the industry, moderating this session with some very high-end panelists who are discussing some great point of views from the investors side. Mr. Mahavir Pratap Sharma, he's the head of TIE Angels and RAIN. Mr. Anjali Bansal, Private Sector Partnership Lead at Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Mr. Sunil Goyal, he's the MD and Fund Manager at Your Nest Venture Capital. Jeet, I would like to just put a couple of housekeeping rules in place before we start with the conversation. Um, if you are joining us as a participant, I'd request you to keep yourself on mute and off camera throughout the session. Once the session is put together, we will bring this recording to you in a form of a YouTube video, and we can always reach out to our YouTube channel to have a look at what we've discussed. There are this session is being recorded, and we are going to put this on different other platforms as well. But if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to write to either us or the Métis Startup Hub for any further discussions that you may want to take further from here. With that, Jeet, I'd like to give it to you. And I really hope we all enjoy a great session today, and many congratulations on putting a very eclectic set of speakers today. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya. It's a pleasure to be moderating this session today. And first of all, I want to thank USIBC for organizing this get together, this framework whereby the interested stakeholders, both from US and India, can interact with each other and understand what is happening in the local ecosystem. As you know, India has gone through tremendous amount of revolutionary growth in terms of digital technologies, innovation, and the number of unicorns that are being birthed in India today. We are third largest startup ecosystem, and the unicorn ecosystem in India is ever expanding at a very fast rate. So, what is going to happen in the next few years is what we are here to discuss today. And the panels that we have curated are from all walks of investment world. We got Mahavir Sharma, who a very active angel investor, and he is a legend in the sense he has created India's Shark Tank as well. So maybe we'll touch upon how he's changing the funding landscape through new mechanisms of funding vehicle. And Sunil Goyal will talk more about the VC. He's a accomplished VC with a lot of successful portfolio companies and international exposure as well. And of course, Anjani, who will talk about more of the social impact ecosystem in terms of startups that are working today. So without any more time, let me get started first with Sunil. Sunil, so maybe you want to give us a little perspective, a larger overview of how do you see the venture capital ecosystem today in India and the opportunity that it represents for the US investors, US stakeholders, US diaspora of India to get engaged and actually do both nation building as well as enjoy the rewards of the great work being done here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeet, for having me over here. Now, this is a very, very pertinent and important question that you're asking. You know, the diaspora of US and India, whenever we interact, the one thing that we have seen always as venture capitalists, that whatever we do in India, it can be replicated back in US, or whatever is happening in US, there's a lot of learning that it offers to Indian startups altogether. And there is a cross functionality, there is a cross leverage, there is even a transition of talent across both nations happening all the time. The learning is that US has always been ahead on the deep tech side, and that's what we've been seeing, and Meti has been supporting for us to be able to do some innovations in the hardware, software side on a continuous basis. And India today has unicorns that are there across sectors. Now, enterprise, edutech, you take a name and they are there. We used to be, until you can say a year back, looking at US for exits to happen. Now India has its own in-depth market. Now, in-depth market, let me give an example. A large business house like Tata's have made acquisitions worth $1 billion of a startup and put in money into 5 more businesses out here. As a venture capitalist, when we were investing or making our thesis, let's say 5 years ago, even 2016, 17, it was very difficult for us to imagine which balance sheet will acquire businesses worth 100, 200, 500 million dollars from us when we nurture them. Today, Reliance has made 23 acquisitions in the last 2 to 3 years. Companies or startups like Byju's have acquired a business for paying a cash of $300 million or $1 billion. Businesses like us are able to give dragon returns. Now, dragon returns is a new term. They are more difficult to give versus building a unicorn. It is 4 to 10 times more difficult to have a dragon in a portfolio. Dragon is a company that returns entire fund value by an exit. And today in India, we can count at least 10, 12 such VCs who have given dragon kind of returns in their portfolio. Yes, the biggest thing that has happened in the last 6 to 9 months, public market has started paying the price which we had never imagined that public markets will pay, which will be higher than the private market. Today, the number of IPOs that have happened on the Indian market, each one of them is our differentiated business model. When Facebook got listed in the US, at that point in time, every investor used to be wondering as to what kind of revenue model they have and how will they be able to have the kind of valuation they have or the listing price they had. We are going through the same transition in India. And it is such heartening thing to see public market investors coming and talking about why they should be holding those digital assets for a longer period of time, even if they are making losses. So India has evolved, Jeet, significantly, particularly in the last 9 months to 12 months. And that's the attraction that I would like to talk about.
No, thank you so much, Sunil. And I think, I don't know about how many of our other audience would have learned this, but I learned something new today, the dragon return, right?
Yeah.
We ask people, hey, you got a unicorn in your portfolio. Now we'll be asking, you got a dragon in your portfolio. So
Correct.
that's a new benchmark that we have to live up to now, right? So, but pivoting from that, since this is our first set of questions, Mahavir, I want you to focus on from a angel investor's perspective, how the ecosystem has evolved. I mean, you're very active in US, in Middle East, and in India, and very innovative in terms of startups in your portfolio, as well as the horses stable show that you have created. So maybe you can touch on the angel investor ecosystem and how the Indian diaspora.
Jeet, you froze, but you froze, but I do get the gist of your question. So fair enough. So I'll take on from where Sunil left. Obviously success at the top level, from follow-on rounds to dragon effect to listing of companies to corporates and foreign funds coming into the angel sector. The bottom of the pyramid of the startup ecosystem is certainly, churning a lot. And I think this has encouraged many startups, has encouraged many tech companies and tech startups to come and reach out for investment. I think India is still valuation-wise much lower than in comparison to what other countries are. I think the technology, the bandwidth is huge. So I think India has a great potential. TAI, as you know, obviously is equally spread in the US and India, and obviously in Middle East, Singapore, Hong Kong. And Hong Kong, the thing is that because of our connect and cross-market investments and the Indian diaspora, which are members of TAI across the globe living in the US, everyone wants to invest in India. So India has become a real, attractive investment from at all levels, especially at the angel level. And because TAI is not a fund or an IC-led or a few people deciding, everyone on the TAI angel program, which is a few hundred people, decide on what investments to make. So collective wisdom, collective knowledge on the technology, collective expertise on what's happening across the globe in that sector, and also visibility into what markets that it can go to. So all that democratically has created a huge platform, and obviously we are working into creating multiple success stories at the bottom of the pyramid, and Horses Stable is just one of them. There are many other, and Mighty Startup Hub has pioneered the Atmanirbhar challenge, and where so many social network platforms have succeeded in the last year or two, and successes are coming out of it. So I personally feel that India is absolutely poised at all levels, extremely talented with various technologies, and especially the new ones now with AI, ML, blockchain. I mean, everything is right here in the backyard. We don't have to look to other countries where they were coming from earlier on. So I think the angel space has evolved. It's very stable. Exits and turnarounds are happening faster. Follow-on rounds are happening faster. So everyone gets to churn all the money, and I think success will be in the next 2 to 3 years. I think the startup, we have 42 unicorns this year. I think we're going to touch about 50 before the year ends. But I think this is going to multiply as we go year on year.
No, absolutely. Very true, love. $900 million in June, July of this year. And now it was done, last round was done last week at $1.8 billion valuation. So you're doubling valuation and becoming unicorn in 6 months now. So, you can really dream of the riches in India today. As Sunil mentioned, startup investment has become an accepted asset class. It's not just the old ways of your 10, 12, 20% return in gold, land, and other assets. Now, actually, this is a accredited asset class that even early stage investors are flocking towards. Now, Anjani, let me take your perspective on it, because you have quite an interesting background as well. You are in the social impact investing, but you have done a lot of venture investing as well, and lived in US for a long time, and now you're doing this in India as well on behalf of Gates Foundation. So please tell us, how do you see the social impact investing sector in India today, and the role that the multilateral institutes and others are playing in building that ecosystem, given that the true VCs, though they might have trouble bottom line goals and may invest in it, but predominantly at an early stage, it is the impact investing that drives and germinates the seeds. So what's your view on what you're seeing?
Yeah, thanks, Jeet, for the question. And I also want to start off by saying that it's incredible to see how MIT is starting to take a lead and play such an important role in developing the startup ecosystem in India. And it's a testament to your leadership in your role that you are driving that vision. And also great to hear from Mahavir and Sunil as well. I think, a few things. First of all, I will perhaps be a little bit less bullish than Sunil and Mahavir, more because, in my role, I look at a balance between impact and financial returns. Broadly, the way I see the impact investing space evolving is that it is in the end a continuum on how you think about impact. On one end, you could have a slightly higher level view, which is more aligned with ESG framework. And as long as you are investing in certain companies or startups which have a well laid out ESG framework, as an investor, one could say that, that's the impact I'm striving for. You could always go a level deeper and start aligning against SDGs and specific indicators, which makes the job a little bit harder. But again, I think I'm seeing a lot of traction amongst investors and also among companies to take that leap and not limit themselves to ESG, but actually try and figure out which are the SDGs on which they are able to move the needle. However, for us as an investor, we like to go a step further. And if we really want to establish the return on investments from an impact lens, we do want to understand the number of, in case of agriculture, number of small farmers who are benefiting in terms of productivity or income through a certain technology. In case of financial services, the number of below poverty line or at poverty line population that can now access financial services. And it is that second level of impact measurement where I still see a significant opportunity for both impact investors and entrepreneurs to do a credible job. And there are certain reasons why we are still a bit behind on that. One is it costs money to be able to collect the right sort of data to build that capability in-house. It's not cheap for young startups to be able to pay for all of that. And that brings me to your question about the role of impact investors. And I think it is the ability to bring that capital to the table, which is not just about growing or scaling up the business model or solving for the technology risk, but also about understanding and measuring impact. And when we think about where is that capital going to come from, while there are definitely philanthropic foundations or impact investors like multilateral institutions who are engaged in this space, there is still a long way to go, given the pace at which the startup ecosystem in India is growing. And where I do see more progress in this space is actually in markets in US and Europe, where you have funds which are now developing their financial structures that are linked to impact. So the carry of fund managers is part of carry of fund managers is contingent on certain impact metrics that the fund is able to achieve. In India, we are still, quite far from having that level of nuance. And similarly, fund managers who are going beyond just equity and thinking about new financial instruments, whether it is revenue-based instruments or a longer gestation period funds, which can be applied to startups that require more time to grow and scale and therefore are not necessarily relevant to venture capital funds. All of those ideas are not yet there in Indian landscape yet. And I see a good opportunity there also going forward. Thanks.
Very well. Although there, Anjali, there are too many thoughts that is put in out there. I must, come in out here to make a statement. First of all, when a venture or an angel makes an investment, the first box is always intuitively ticked off ESG. There is no reason for the companies that we are funding are not looking at ESG. And if they do not have a deep enough purpose, their vision is not compelling enough to make an impact on the society, there is no reason for us to make that investment. So yes, as a VCs, for a scale that we are going to be looking at, and for us, the scale that we are imagining, for that larger impact, the consumer insight is always about doing some social good. So there is some impact on sustainable development goals that come into picture intuitively. The only thing that we VCs don't do is we don't measure the impact that is widely felt all across as to how it is felt. But our businesses grow just because we live that particular value system of impact.
Yeah, there's always been marriage between social impact investment and we as angels or VCs. I mean, we've invested with the Social Alpha on a SDG project on recycling. Will Grow, and we have invested. Fool is a simple example. I mean, there are multiple examples that you can find where there's marriage between impact funds and angels happening across India. Only the longer gestation period, and I agree with you, in biotech and medtech, where obviously research and approvals do take a longer time. Other than that, I think there's synergy and marriage. Maybe not as aggressive, I agree, Anjali, but there are co-investments happening in that sector too.
No, it's very interesting, and I would have let this go in a merry-go-round. I think that'll be much better. But no, I want to say two things. One is I'm glad Anjali didn't agree with you guys that this is a great market, because now I know we are not in a bubble. If all three of you said was great, then we are in a bubble. But 2 out of 3, we are still in a high growth, positive market, right? So not a bubble yet. It's still a good market. And second, of course, this the whole concept of economic return versus social return. Yes, in a very economic perspective, might not be together all the time. But when you look from a developmental perspective of India, all the things that the startups have done have enabled the social cohesion either through inclusiveness, equitability, or sustainability. So, for example, even UPI, right? It transformed the fintech industry, but it was highly inclusive. Look at during the time of COVID, all these startups that came out, they were the primary reason why we were able to do all these direct benefit transfers and various other mechanisms that came into play, which provided sustenance to people around the most heterogeneous parts of India. So I think there's a lot to be done, and especially, Anjani, and we'll talk more about it. But India had gone through one agricultural revolution. Now we are in the second agricultural revolution, led by tech infusion. So all this tech is what's going to enable the second revolution in terms of doubling farmers' income, increasing productivity. But having said that, now let me get back to you, Sunil. That we are talking to the community, right? Our brothers and sisters on the other side of the ocean here, who are like-minded investors or interested in investing and knowing more about India. But there's a difference, right? So these people are more into deep tech, understanding the future trend, what is going to come next. And you had lightly touched on the digital currency as well. You had touched on a couple of other sectors. So where do you see the future of the deep tech in India? Is it the space technologies? What's the role of cryptocurrency? How do you, the VCs who take the biggest risk very early on, how are you seeing the market evolve?
Oh. Okay, Jeet. First of all, on a similar forum, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, me and one of my portfolio company spoke on the USIBCA forum and an annual conference of USIBCA. I'll tell you why I'm mentioning this. The reason is that we've been pushing that particular founder who was running a conversational AI company since 2014 and 2016, 17, telling him that it is time for you to go and be in the United States and start winning customers there. That connect through USIBC gave him the confidence. He was there in 9 months' time. And now when we ask this founder, Umesh Sachdev of Unifor, a conversational AI company, soon it is going to be a unicorn. And the only statement he says, if I would have reached US 2 years ago. This is what the deep tech entrepreneurs are seeing when they are nurtured, they put an idea together, they're looking to be able to win customers in the US market. On the trends, robotics is one area because of contactless, touchless scenarios that are happening. We have another company right now, Miko, which is winning hearts of children in the international market, present in 150 customers in 150 countries. So we know that robotics is one area that is going to be always evolving. Second area, health tech, the awareness that has happened, the health tech, if you're able to pick data without human intervention and get that data interpreted for our health on a continuous basis, we have been doing it from our touching our wrists, but there is a medical grade innovation that are happening on the medical tech, etc. So that's going to be other area that we're looking at. You briefly touch about blockchain. I won't say the word crypto out here right now, but definitely what I would say is that trust is one of the biggest assets that humanity has. Whatever cities that we live in the modern society, there are elements of trust that we get from each other in the economy, in the society. If we are able to enhance the level of trust using blockchain and at the enterprise level and eventually at the consumer level, the scale at which business transactions will start happening, the transaction cost will go down, governments will start trusting us much more as citizens, for them to be able to say, yes, what we are saying is correct and move on that particular aspect. So there are various facets out there. Agree is, I'm on a panel with the Israel-Indo interaction happening only on agri businesses. The learning that our Indian startups can take from the agri technology that has been developed by Israel for us to pick and adopt that technology for masses in India for small means what the Israelis are saying. I want to come and win in the small farm areas. How do I go and implement my technology when the person has small farm holdings, etc., and then win in that particular market? It's very difficult challenge, but yes, that agri-tech moment it happens, we will have first. We believe that in few years we should have an agri-tech unicorn as well. So those are the opportunities. Definitely, opportunities are many. Jeet, I can go on and on, but these are the few to talk about.
Thank you so much. I think that's what you live, eat, and drink is the opportunities, and there's a tremendous amount going on right now. So let me ask you, Mahavi, the same thing. Let me not try to come with a new question for you. How do you see, and what do you think about what Sunil said just now?
I mean, I totally agree with him. I think all these sectors are definitely something that is going to be, we are also optimistic about. And I think just to go, I mean, deeper, I mean, it's when he says a sector, whether it's agri or medtech, there's so many aspects to it. There's the commerce side to it, there is the technology side to it, there is the bioscience side to it. Agriculture has climate, has soil, has farm to table. It's the commerce, it's outreaching the villages in the rural India, and similarly, fintech has so many aspects. So I think all India is still a land of unused technology geographies and areas. And I think all these technologies are just enabling. And with what you said, with UPI and all the other Aadhaar cards and everything that we have, and the health cards that the state governments are putting in, and digitization from driving license to e-passports to highways and transportation, absolutely a great enabler for startups to make use of because of these open sources and creating an impactful journey. And I think the Bharat, the tier 3, tier 4 in rural India, and penetration of all these technologies down the line, maybe not blockchain as yet, but at least fintech, agritech, medtech, and the services that these services can provide is a huge thing for me as a future going forward, in my opinion.
All right, so let me just ask you, so where do you see, what sectors do you think the next set of unicorns will come from now?
So next six, I mean, I think we've had quite a few from the edtech and the fintech thing, but I think the next set of unicorns will come from the medical side. I personally feel, I personally think they're in the making. I think the media and entertainment is a huge with COVID and OTT and everything. I think that's something that's untapped, though big players are trying to get into that. But I think disruption of sorts is about to happen. And I think that's something I would love to see some Indian companies create the unicorn barrier, which are not mainstream channels or mainstream media companies, but innovative penetration, and especially in languages across India, AI-enabled language outreach from news to entertainment. So I think those are the sectors I feel will have a unicorn pretty soon in the making.
Very interesting. We'll touch base with you in the next 6 months to a year, and we'll
this
see.
Is being recorded, and we can see this again.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Let me add two sectors out there, okay?
Please.
Because I know Anjani is going to come in. On the electric vehicle technology sustainability side, the unicorns are going to be seen in that area soon and much faster, because that's one area that is felt by everybody, each one of us on daily basis. So we know that something that is around sustainability is going to be one big thing. He talked about entertainment. I'll just put a layer onto that creative content now using NFTs will be definitely be producing some unicorns. So yes, there is a creative mind working out there. They're creating content. Provided there's a layer of NFT, you will see some unicorns there too.
No, fantastic. I think, whoever said it very rightly. If you can dream it, you can do it, right? So we keep coming with all these creative new avenues, and opportunities to engage the community and the society and create a consumer class, then I think ultimately, as we move to this experience economy, as very personalized economy on an individual basis, that's the natural course of evolution in terms of human experiences. And I think there's a lot more to be done, but we are getting more into the nuances of it. But let me switch a little bit to Anjani. That the whole digital economy that we are building, a lot of good things are happening for the marginalized sections of the society as well, right? But how do we actually, what role does the impact funding, or how do we bring more tier 2, tier 3, or the 70-80% of India that still is not part of the mainstream ecosystem in terms of technology consumption and the benefit of technology that they're driving today? So how do you see the impact investing bringing the, creating more localized clusters of self-sustaining vibrant economies?
Yeah, thanks, Jeet, for question, because that also allows me just a little bit to respond to Sunil and Mahavir. See, I'm definitely totally bullish about the Indian startup ecosystem, but their ability to, and the current ability of both investors and startups to be able to go down to the level that you're talking about in terms of reaching poor population, rural population, women, there we still have a journey to make. Having worked with startups which are invested in startups which are, for example, developing commerce related business models or financial services. When you talk to them, let's take a particular measure of impact, which is, if you're talking about financial services as an example, how is that going to benefit poor women entrepreneurs? Now that requires a level of nuanced understanding that when it comes to women, they may not have access to a device, first of all, in a household, even though smartphone penetration in India is growing exponentially. If they have access to device, they may not have access, or they may not have a decision-making authority in the household. If they have decision-making authority in the household, they may not have skills which are needed to transact on a digital platform. If they have skills, they may not have the network of suppliers that is needed to build a business. And that level of understanding of how to achieve impact in entrepreneurs and investors is not common. And again, that's where I see a role of philanthropic investors and quote unquote patient investors to step in and invest with entrepreneurs alongside other mainstream commercial investors, so that the use of funds of philanthropic investors is going towards bridging those gaps, which normal mainstream commercial investors may be less a better place to do it. And also, another example of this is also about reaching new geographies. So even when we look at, for example, you take agri-tech as an ecosystem in India. It used to be a frontier market, but now you see even mainstream large VC funds investing in agri-tech. But even today, if you were to go and see how many of these agri-tech companies are operating, for example, in Northeast, or even in big states like UP and Bihar, very few. So again, I see a role of philanthropic funds to be investing in these tech companies, but creating channels so that they can enter these markets, which will not happen simply because it's digital. Some of the harder to reach geographies are still missing the rails that are needed for these digital technologies to function. And that's where I see philanthropic or long-term investors can really partner with mainstream VC funds to truly unlock the impact potential of Indian startups.
I think that's a great set of insights. Sunil, do you have anything to add to that?
As the money flows into venture capital and startup investing, the horizon will multiply. Today, there is a very limited set of funds that are there. Hence, the water is flowing where where it is easiest to go and get the return. So it's like all the money is going into tech startups. And I know you as METI have been trying to promote manufacturing. Okay, now manufacturing will come in once we have large number of funds in India who've exhausted the first top end of the market or the cream end of the market on the technology side. Then the manufacturing will come. Then those people, the impact money will start coming in, even on a larger number, even in the VC ecosystem. So yes, it is about the limited resources that we have today, and we're making most of those limited resources. Hopefully, the productivity of this capital that we are demonstrating in India at this point in time will attract more and more capital for us to widen our spread of our wings.
Absolutely. And again, the hope and the model that has succeeded before has always been that as the economies grows, the GDP grows, the trickle-down effect is still there, and the benefits accrue to all of people, not necessarily in the equitable way, but at least in a transformative way. And India has been able to bring a lot of people out above the poverty line now. So things are changing, things are improving, but how do we provide them the same level of impact in economic terms that we are, enjoying in the tech world right now? But having said that, let's get back to the main point, and I'll make this as the last set of questions here. And since the purpose of this discussion today is to build bridges and deeper engagement and awareness and exposure and partnerships with the West Coast community, Sunil, I want you to tell us a little bit about how do, from an investor perspective, right? If someone wants to be an LP in an Indian fund, or, if you are doing international fundraising, what's your view on it? And is that something that's very, rules, regulations, practice-wise, investor-friendly now?
This is amazingly investor-friendly since 2014. Multiple clarifications have been done by the government. I'll talk about a few steps. First, any foreign national or non-resident Indian can invest directly in AIF structure or any kind of pooling structure in India approved by Securities Exchange Board of India, the regulator. And when they invest in, they only need a permanent account number, one foreign investor registration number, which is our permanent account number with the income tax authorities. If they have, they can freely invest. First. Second, the long-term capital gains tax has been capped for foreign investors, money coming in from the non-resident NRE account or NRO account, but from non-residents is 10%. So that's the second thing that is done. Third, there was always a challenge of repatriating money from India, and many people happen to face it. And we kept going back to RBI as to how to resolve this particular issue. They resolved it in February 2020. I'll tell you what they did. They made, when the money was coming in from a foreign investor, we used to take it and start using it. It is only when after 10 years we had to send the money back, we had to trace it back how the money came in and showcase the proof that this money came in for this purpose. Now, I cannot use that money that has come from overseas till the time I've made a submission online to the Reserve Bank of India that this has come for a portfolio investment. Because there is a digital record of that investment coming in, repatriation is going to be like this for it to happen. In addition, there are new infrastructure created for Gift City for anybody who wants to come and operate through an overseas external vehicle, which can invest not only in India, but any part of the world, the way you've been doing through Cayman or through Mauritius. That vehicle is available in Gift City. Yes, we as venture capitalists are accepting money through any of these vehicles, whether it is through Cayman, Mauritius, and we are open to accept money from Gift City as well now.
Now that's great. I mean, how would you be a venture capitalist if you didn't ask for money, right? Because you always take from one hand and then give with the other hand, right? So please give to the startups. You are doing a very important part in the ecosystem to make sure that our startups can get the necessary funds they need to become the future industries for us. Mahavir, let me ask you the same thing, but from the angle that Thai is a gateway to India in a lot of ways. So how do you see people's engagement with Thai outside of India, and that as a vehicle for engagement and access and exposure to the ecosystem and maybe investment vehicle?
Absolutely. So I totally agree with what Sunil just said. Absolutely. Repatriation recently happened. And of course, quite a few out of 500,000 that we just launched 3 months ago, the Thai India Angel Network. And we've had 500,000 investment, out of which 30% have come from non-resident Indians on repatriable basis, just because the government made it easy for them. So the other thing, and rather than money coming in, I would like to talk about startups going out and TAI's outreach program. And as we speak, Venk Shukla, one of the past chairs at TAI Global and TAI Silicon Valley, is about to make a presentation of the advisory council that the Honorable Minister of Commerce chairs, and he's part of, where TAI is offering all startups, whether registered with the METI or with the DPIIT or whatever, or AIC, to have market access into countries across the globe. And that is where, again, we want to invest in these companies, give them enough money to go outside, and then raise more money locally, have a company that's where the holding company stays in India, and sell their product or service to the country specific that they are in and get different valuation. So with just 24 out of 61 chapters in India, we have almost 35, 36 chapters outside of India. So all these cities, all these countries become open. So from legal advisory to having a small office space at the Thai offices, to having a shot at all angels and VCs who are members, and then to have the knowledge and mentoring that's required for, because every market is different, every consumer is different, every marketing that is, so all those things put together is where TAI is also bringing in, taking startups. So it's not just bringing in money, which is great, but all these companies who are invested by all these people have a vested interest in taking these companies out of India and making them truly global, and their path to being a unicorn or path to being successful or competing with global companies increases. So I think it has to be a multiple effect. If it can't just benefit one country, it has to be win-win for everyone. And I think India can be the create companies that are global in nature, and that's the direction that we're trying to work in. And it doesn't matter. We're working, co-investing with other networks, other funds, and are happy to take any company across the globe, no matter where it is, so long as it's an Indian company.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And that dovetails very well with what our Honorable PM's vision is, that we are one world, one people, and we all need to work towards building unity and building solutions that serve the humanity, not just Indians or Americans, but everyone together. And Mighty Startup Hub has launched various programs to build bridges across the startup ecosystems. So we have multiple programs going on with France, with UK, with Germany, in Middle East, South America. The goal is that just like financial capital knows no boundary, intellectual capital should not know no boundary either. We should all collaborate to co-create for the betterment of the society as a whole. And for the betterment of the society, let me get to Anjani then. Anjani, during the last couple of years, pandemic times, right, we have seen that all of the impact funding, a lot of these resources were diverted towards a very focused cause, because humanity was suffering around the world and we all had to fight together. But now, as we hopefully come out of this, do you see the other urgent pressing needs? Would they be served again? For example, you talked about women empowerment, poverty elevation, rural development, education, all these important factors and the needs. Do you think the impact funding will come there now, or do you think more funding is coming into India, or how are you seeing this going forward?
Yeah, I definitely see, in some ways, eventually the investments getting back to business as usual, but with certain, structural changes that have happened as a result of COVID, and some ongoing challenges. For example, impact investing, let's take, say, skilling as a sector or job tech as a sector, which was essentially is targeting, or one of the main goals is to switch large segments of population from informal to formal employment. Let's say in the space of blue collar jobs, but a lot of informal workers have left cities where these jobs exist, and as a result, there needs to be adaptation in these business models, so that workers who are no longer in those cities can still find where the job opportunities are, and make choices in terms of which cities they want to migrate to again. Which is very different when a lot of these workforce was present in big cities, and the startups didn't need to figure out how do you now reach this workforce which is no longer residing where the jobs are. And second, along the same lines, we have seen greater relevance of issues like social security and consumer protection in these business models, which were not necessarily as important earlier, both in the minds of investors and entrepreneurs. But in the current environment, when we take models around, say, gig economy or e-commerce, such issues are front and center in terms of integrating them within the business model and not just layering it on top of what is already there. So that's what I believe, that some of while a lot of those sectors that suffered during COVID are already getting that capital flow back, but they will have to make, and they are making those changes given the new context that we are all in. Thanks.
Very well said, Anjani. Thank you so much. With this, I would, as we come towards the end of this session, I know there's a lot of questions we can ask, but what I can take away from this is that quite a lot has been done, much more needs to be done, but India truly represents a rainbow of opportunities, be it in health tech, agri-tech, med-tech, defense tech, infra-tech, any sector you name it, there's plenty of opportunities because there are plenty of challenges. And today we are in the company of the enablers of the technological revolution through the financial capital infusion. So we have investors both in the impact side as well as the VC and the early investing through Mahavir. So very thankful to you guys for partnering today with us and being here today. And lastly, I want to thank USIBC on behalf of Ministry of Electronics and IT Startup Hub. Because our goal is to build bridges. Our goal is to take India's story to as many people around the world as possible and share what is happening here. So thank you for providing a platform, and we look forward to connecting with more and more people who are interested in learning more about opportunities in India. We are always happy to answer and happy to get connected to them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeet. Thanks everybody for a very interesting conversation that we've had. We've not only discussed some solution-based approach to building an ecosystem for innovation, but we've also looked at some really emerging sectors that will pave the way in the startup ecosystem. I'm reminded of Sunil and Mahavir discussing about a few things on emerging unicorns, probably from the health tech sector and the EV sector and the media and entertainment. We are very proud at USIBC to actually start working on these sectors, especially on media and entertainment, and taking the e-gaming, e-skilling aspect to another level. We have partners like Jet Synthesis who are also based in LA, and Medha Jayashankar, she's also a co-chair for this committee. And we'd be very happy to take up a few startups from India to LA in the coming year and build that kind of a bridge where we can provide them with the right amount of resources, training, and help them, incubate in a more sound and well-equipped ecosystem, which will help them do a sort of a technology transfer back in India. So we're really excited to take that forward, and with partners like Meti Startup Hub, who are not only helping us ease of doing business, but also easing building businesses in the country. So many congratulations to everybody, and Jeet, thank you for this great set of conversation that we've had, and I'd like to really thank our speakers, Mahavir, Anjani, and Sunil for taking our time to discuss some excellent points that we've discussed. With that, let me put an end to this great discussion, and wishing everybody a great day ahead and happy holidays and a great year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.